Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast and YouTube channel. I'm on a mission to help you cut the time to all the things that are holding you back so you can unleash your entrepreneur. Welcome to Never Been Promoted. Hi, I'm your host, Thomas Helfrich. I appreciate everyone who's joining here in live to talk about some skincare. Farrow, that's right. How to use lard from a pig to make you look sexier than a pig, for sure. By the way, I don't use it, so I need to. I got enough wrinkles on my forehead possibly to be able, you can wash things on this really effectively. Can't do it on my abs, for sure. Just round off, fall off. But this, I don't know. Just meandering here. Here's the thing. Charles Mayfield founded this, Farrow.life. We're going to talk to him about his background and how he went through his journey of building this. He's got kids, and it's going to be a conversation around the business of skincare and Farrow, how it plays, but also, if you're out there and you're thinking of making products, what you could do with a manufacturer or somebody who knows how to make stuff and how you get scale. And he'll talk about the challenges he's facing as well. So our mission, right, is to help you get these, ties cut, the stuff holding you back so you can move forward in your entrepreneurial journey. Learn from the guests. I have one simple call to action, and, on Apple or Spotify or whatever your favorite player is, just hit the follow button. Just crush that little follow button, because that way when we have new episodes come out, you're the first to know, and you're more likely to listen to them. So follow button. That's it. It's beautiful. All right, Charles on stage. How you doing, Mr. Mayfield?
I'm living the dream, Thomas. Great to be here.
Yeah. And we were talking off air. You're actually in Atlanta right now, and you've lived here a long time. So welcome back to Atlanta. I think I haven't been outside much today. It was raining earlier. I have no idea. How is it today outside in Atlanta here?
Nasty. It's quite, it could be worse, right? It's not, at least it's not freezing like, what is it, last week?
Yes, it was cold.
I always love the 20% increase in my blood pressure when I drive into town down here. So
because of the traffic.
Oh man, it's just I live the town I live in now is population 11,000 people. So
that's a lot. That's quite a few. I mean, is there a stoplight?
Like 7.
Oh wow, that's big.
Yeah,
time.
it's a real metropolis.
Where do you live right now?
I live in funny enough, Athens, Tennessee. So I spent 24 years living in Atlanta, explaining to people that I lived in Athens, Tennessee, not Georgia. And when I lived in Atlanta, I lived in Smyrna. Most of my years were in Smyrna. And so now I spend my time in Tennessee telling people that I used to live in Smyrna. And they're like, well, I thought you lived in Atlanta. There's a Smyrna, Tennessee. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Athens, so you get to avoid state income tax. That's a smart move.
That's nice. That. Yes. Yeah. We
Yeah.
like the politics and the taxes up there. Fairly business promoting state. And, yeah.
I know. I just got our mortgage bill, and right, we saw the property taxes, and I'm like, good God, it's more than my first mortgage. It's ridiculous. Like it's like and somehow like it goes up every year, but I don't see any benefit ever. So anyway,
yeah,
I don't see the benefit. I see them redoing sidewalk after sidewalk after sidewalk after sidewalk.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's part of the strategy. It has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about today, but just thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah. Well, the golden age is apparently upon us, so we'll see.
What is it? Who determined that?
Breath.
How did I'm not going to go down that. Who determined that? I downloaded an app called Straight Arrow News. Not that I'm promoting anything for it, but it's interesting because it actually it covers from left, right, center who covered what story or where. And so they do a little data with it. And I mean, right or wrong, it's just an interesting way to get news to see. Anyway, it's out there. It's like a Straight Arrow News. I feel like I want to be an anchor for them just so I can say it over and over. Straight Arrow News, bringing it to you straight. All right. Enough of that nonsense. Do you want to do your small intro here or your big intro and then just go big with it? Tell us who you are, what you're doing today, and then back up how the hell you got there.
Yeah. So Charles Mayfield, I'm the founder and CEO of Farrow Skincare. That's sort of by night. By day, I run I'm a agent in the risk mitigation, risk management, insurance business. But yeah, I founded Farrow in 2022. As I mentioned, spent about 24 years. I came to Georgia Tech, graduated in 97, grew up in East Tennessee, and then migrated back home in 2016 to get into farming. I guess Farrow, so we're the first lard-based skincare brand. There's some tallow out there. I know you and I were talking about that before we hit record, but we're the first using pig fat. So there it is. We're using pig fat for our stuff, and it's really an amalgamation. I'm sort of a self-proclaimed jack of all trades, master of none, and so I grew up in an ag adjacent family. The Mayfield Dairy brand, that's my family's business. We sold it.
What is ag adjacent? Agricultural
ag adjacent. So I'm a member of the Mayfield family. You've seen the yellow trucks driving around Atlanta. That's a dairy family. But by the time I was born, really, and coming of age, when you get big enough as a dairy, you either milk cows or you bottle milk. And we grew to be a very, very well-known regional dairy brand in the country. But by the time I came along, we weren't milking cows anymore. We were collecting all the cow juice and putting it in bottles and pasteurizing and making ice cream. So ag adjacent.
The first guy that milked a cow. And what was he trying to do?
That's a good question. And was it a cow that he milked?
Probably hopefully not. It wasn't a bull. Different experience.
Well, yeah, reminds me of a funny scene from an Amish comedy movie. But no, it was Kingpin.
It's Kingpin, yes. Yeah. Randy Quaid.
We have a bull though.
And what is his name?
Anyway, Woody Harrelson. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
one of my favorite movies.
So, but yeah, so Farrow was born. Here's the short and quick story. I got a nasty sunburn. It was July 5th, 2019. I had this culinary background. So let me back up. So I found CrossFit in 2007. CrossFit introduced me to the Paleo diet in 2009. My ex-wife and I co-authored a couple of cookbooks that were pretty early in the paleo space. If you're not familiar, sort of eat like our ancestors, ancient ancestors. And so we sort of rose to paleo prominence early on in that scene's real growth. And paleo eventually introduced me to regenerative farming. I took a pilgrimage up to Polyface Farms in Virginia. If you don't know Polyface, it was Joel Salatin is the farmer that was featured in Michael Pollan's book, The Omnivore's Dilemma, which is sort of a groundbreaking look at food and how we eat and things of that nature. But that really, again, sort of ag adjacent growing up, never really sort of looked at farming I love the outdoors, played sports, scouting, all that fun stuff. But all of a sudden I visit this place in Virginia, and any of your listeners can go there anytime. It's a remarkable spot, but that sort of planted this seed of interest in growing food, specifically meat, pastured pork, beef, chicken, all those fun things. And so started a regenerative farm, micro farm. We moved to Tennessee in 2016, started the farm in 17, had a bunch of clients, in Atlanta. So I would do like monthly food drops, order this, order that. And fast forward 2019, I got an absurdly nasty sunburn. And I got this culinary background. I was raising pigs, which by the way are my favorite farm animal. And I was cooking with it. I rendered their fat, this lard, and was cooking with it. And I come home with this, probably second degree sunburn, like lobster red.
It was on July 5th. Did the problem start on July 4th? And just kind of
It,
continue.
it did, but it's not the story you think. We a bunch of us got pretty fast and furious. I don't know if you remember the hemp craze when the 2018 Farm Bill passed. They legalized hemp, and so a bunch of us were growing hemp. And so I'd been in the field planting hemp for basically 2 straight days, and
Like
no
a kid
sunscreen.
looking for shells on a beach, and all of a sudden they get up and they're like, I don't think I
Ouch.
can move anymore the rest of the week. Yes.
That's right. That's right. And so it's funny, came home. I think Julie was out of town with the kids. We were going through our divorce. It was July 4th, so she traveled with the kids. And so I'm sitting in my living room, barbecued, and I had sort of this moment of, I don't know, call it curiosity and desperation. My mom's from Mobile, Alabama. We used to go down there every summer for like 10 days. And the first thing she would do is she'd take the jar of aloe vera and stick it in the fridge so that when the inevitable happened, it was a nice cooling experience. And so I'm sitting there just suffering. And I was like, wait, I've got a jar of lard that I've been cooking with in my fridge. It sort of looks like aloe vera. Let's try it. And I put this stuff on. Thomas, it soaked in my, like I caked myself. You can imagine like Vaseline or anything else. Like you just lather up.
Vaseline works great when you're like, because it traps the moisture in, right? It starts helping.
It traps the moisture in. This stuff was on my skin, and then like that, it disappeared. Like my skin ate it. And so that was kind of cool. Put it on, got up the next morning, put it on again. So two applications. My sunburn was gone in about 2 days, 3 days, but I never peeled. And so that was this, because you always peel. If the sunburn's bad enough.
The thing you're looking forward to is to get like some chunks.
I know, like you get to peel. Yeah.
Like you get on the carpet and you're like, this is going to be gross, but it's going to feel good. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that sort of planted the seed to, well, what's kind of possible here, and started tinkering around. And so anyway, we launched the company after some trials and tribulations, but we launched the company in 2022, and 100% organic growth since then. It's really just been podcasts and a couple of conferences a year, not doing any paid ads, but we say the lard works in mysterious ways. But it was that culinary background, and we could talk about sort of the state of affair with food in this country. And there's this big MAHA movement going on right now with the new administration and all these things. Well, there's so much correlation between the food industry and the skincare industry. Lots of toxic preservatives, lots of chemicals. And so sort of through trial and error, I took all of that stuff out of skincare. And what I like to tell people is I launched this company because it worked so well on a sunburn, which is, arguably the most common acute skincare problem we deal with. But I'm still in business because I've found out since then, you name a skincare condition. I've got testimonials left and right: eczema, psoriasis, chiggers, and my poor kids, they're 10 and 12 now. Lord, it's been like the Windex in my big fat Greek wedding. They put that stuff on everything. Like I got a bug bite.
You have ants. You spray Windex, they can't find their trail, instantly kills them. So it's a little more humane.
Really? I learned something today. Thank you.
That is an excellent. It was like, find the Windex, no, the blue stuff. Wow. You spray it, kills their trail, and it instantly gets rid of them.
Huh. Well, if they're fire ants, I would do that. But some ants are good for us.
They are. The ones inside my kitchen have crossed a boundary.
Yep. Stay in your lane.
I feel like my kitchen sounds dirty now. It doesn't. Just they get in. It doesn't matter how you do it. I don't know why they're here too. It's like 75 degrees below zero last week. Why isn't Ann even alive at this point? Sorry, tangents. This happens.
I love it.
So you've taken everything out, and you found that if you purified pig fat, it has. How do you take it from, sorry, little piggy, we're going to melt you down a little bit here, to like different product types without it being like lard, like without it being like some, like how do you do it? Like how do you?
Perfect. Yeah, great question. So everyone thinks my product's going to smell like bacon grease because their most common exposure to rendered pig fat is bacon drippings.
I mean, that does smell good, but like not
bacon is amazing, right? I call bacon the fantastic byproduct of my products, right? So how do we get there? So you have a pig, you raise a pig, hopefully outside, healthy, happy, pastured pork. That's the best way to raise an animal. In fact, my product doesn't exist without raising a healthy, happy, what I call one bad day pig. But that day does inevitably come. You take this animal's life. It's a very solemn moment, right? There's a lot of emotion in such things, but pigs and humans share a ton of biology. So they're very good at converting excess caloric intake into subcutaneous fat. And so, no one wants a 2-inch thick fat cap on their pork chop. So when you start eviscerating and butchering the animal, there's all this excess fat. You take that, you grind it, you render it. It doesn't smell like bacon grease because you're not cooking bacon while you render it, but you render it down.
There's no curing on it yet.
None of that stuff yet. And so, that's basically how we do it. And fat's an amazing. It's funny because it's a waste product from the today. It's a waste product. Rewind the clock 100 years. We made everything with animal fat. All the soap and tallow, or all the soap and candles in this country in 1910 were made from beef tallow. I like to rewind the clock to 1910 because we didn't have any grocery stores. You went to the general store to get your nails and your turpentine and all the things. There's a 100% chance in 1910, if you walked out of the general store, you had a can of lard. We cooked with lard. We fried with lard.
It got a bad rep because it's actually, I think, healthier for you to cook in because it's more. There's no impurities.
Oh, we can unpack all that if you'd like to. But
my wife being from Slovakia, right? They still use.
Any
Eastern
European or
her mom uses lard, and I gotta tell you, it tastes better. You look at it, you're like, oh my god, a heart attack. It's actually not true.
Oh, all of that's untrue. Yeah, the lipid hypothesis, and this is funny too, because this is where sort of my health and wellness background coalesces with my skincare back, because it's all metabolic health, right? And so, yes, this is a fat that is good for you. It's good to ingest. It's good to cook with. It's good to, most butters, but butter was a rarity, a couple hundred years ago, but lard was everywhere. So lard spreads and all that fun stuff. It has a high smoke point, so you can fry without it oxidizing. There's a million different benefits to lard, but here's the catch. You have to raise a healthy, happy pig, because just like humans, they will metabolize and store their environment, their diet and their environment, for better or for worse in their subcutaneous fat. So if it's not a healthy, happy pig, which regrettably, this is one of the sort of foundational tenets of our business. We're highlighting that you need to raise a healthy, happy pig. And, again, regrettably, about 97, 98% of the pork raised in this country are raised in abhorrent conditions, poor quality conditions, poor diet. And so their fat is not of high quality. I source my fat from very, very high integrity farms. But yeah, so lard was also the first fat. So I said 1910. 1911 is when Crisco launches, and Crisco is short for crystallized cottonseed oil, a former engine lubricant that they convinced us all was good for us to eat. And they dyed it white. If you've ever opened a can of Crisco, it's white. Well, it's not naturally white, but in 1911, the preeminent cooking fat on every general store shelf in America was lard. And if you've ever opened a can of lard, it is white. And so I don't remember what tangent we were pulling on, but that's sort of
just the history of it, of how it got there, because I think there's a lot of stuff we've been missold over the last 100 years in the idea that it's good for us, but it's profits. It's mass production of food to keep up with the population, but also if you can make things for cheaper, if you can produce something for 7 cents and sell it for $20 instead of making it for $1, they're going to do the 7 cents for those extra 93 cents. And it's just follow the money. Maybe the intentions were good for some, but I just think it's harder and harder to find pure things in general.
Correct. And also we've externalized a lot of these costs, right? So is lard more expensive than cottonseed oil? Yes. Is diabetes more expensive than being metabolically healthy? Yes. Right. So we've externalized, especially around, again, health and food, we've externalized some of these costs. What are the environmental impacts of raising pigs if you've ever seen one of these pig farms, with these huge,
I've smelled them.
Oh yeah, they're terrible. And so, excrement, poop and pee is actually Mother Nature's most wonderful organic asset. But when you concentrate it and don't provide it enough carbon, it becomes toxic and leaches into our water streams and all that fun stuff. So we're trying to highlight the proper way to raise a pig and the benefits of doing so. And we're just doing that through the lens of skincare.
Does the cortisol that a stressed animal have throughout its life make its way into fat, or is that just a more bloodstream, like the gaminess of stressing out an animal constantly?
It doesn't necessarily make its way into the fat, but what it will do is change. It's a stress hormone. Cortisol is the stress hormone. So if you're constantly running at high cortisol, then you're going to preferentially store fat in a subcutaneous manner. And chances are, again, that environment that's causing that stress, it has some, rather nefarious environmental hazards in it, whether that be poor food. Pigs metabolize vitamin D the same way we do from sun exposure. And those 97% that are raised in the house never see the sun. And so, it almost doesn't matter what you feed a pig if you're never allowing them to express their pigness, which is rooting around and getting sunshine and fresh air, fresh water. And so all of that external stress and stimuli ultimately manifests in poor fat quality. So a worse ratio of the lipids, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, saturated fats. It can alter the pH somewhat, but again, if you raise a healthy, happy, bacon's delicious, one bad day pig, their fat and our skin is like a lock and a key. The lard is the most similar exogenous substance on the planet to human sebum, which is the natural oil that our glands produce. Oh. And so lock and key, and here I'll bring it modern day. I'm working on a talk about this right now, but pigs are modern day heroes. So we train all of our surgeons on them because their organs and skin are so similar to ours. We harvest hormones from pigs, have for years, and use those directly in humans. So the biology is a spot on match. And here's the coup de grace, right? We take the heart valve from a pig and use it to fix the heart valve of a human. So the biology is so similar. And if you've ever known anyone that was in an organ transplant scenario, like the one thing you don't want is the transplanted organ to disagree with the biology of the recipient. And so it's such a spot on match. And so when it comes to skincare, we'll just keep it there for a minute. Skincare is about three things: biology. It's a fat-based industry, right? So you want the fat that is most aligned with human biology. I would argue that that's lard. Okay. You want naturally occurring vitamins and minerals, not these synthesized things, right? Because that on a molecular level, we'll keep it skincare. Retinol is a buzzword. You mentioned your daughter. I'm sure she's checking into all these hyaluronic acid and retinol and all these buzzwords. Well, retinol is vitamin A, but retinol manufactured in a lab on a molecular level, which our bodies metabolize things at a molecular level. It's not going to metabolize it as well because it's this synthesized, somehow different, even though labeled the same ingredient. And so you want the proper fat, you want naturally occurring vitamins and minerals. And then the third piece, which we can unpack if you'd like, is we don't need all these chemicals that the current state of skincare inject into the system. So just to give you one example, in America, the FDA prohibits the use of 11 chemicals in skincare. And by contrast, the EU has a list of over 1,300. And so what are these chemicals doing? Why are they there? What are they doing to our hormones? A lot of these chemicals are estrogen signaling. And so those are the three things. And so, I'll mention this too. pH is a huge deal with skincare. And of course, our pH has a lot to do with that. This gets into how well does our skin, which is our largest organ, often called our second stomach, how well is it going to metabolize or agree with what we put on it? And so pH is a big factor in that. And so if you're not injecting all these chemicals that mess with the pH, what you want is a naturally occurring, automatically pH balanced fat to put on your skin.
So I think the original question we'd say, and thank you for that, because I'm like sucking this information up because I don't know anything about the industry outside of like Sephora, right? And Laneige. Like my kids love it when I say that, Laneige. I don't know what it's made out of. I'm sure it's not great, but they like it. How does it go from that of which is like, the ground down from the butcher
Yep.
to stored
my
in
product.
something that's not like feeling like I'm going to have to like wash my hands off. Like, so how do you get it down to a usable state?
Yeah, sure. So you grind it and render it. We use a wet rendering process, which keeps again that smell from cooking bacon. Well, you're cooking meat, and so you don't want that. I mean, I'm sure there's a handful of people out there that want to smell like bacon, but yeah. So we wet render it and then store it. Fat is any fat really, but certainly animal fat. Fat is an antibacterial environment by nature. If you've ever heard of like confit cooking, which is a French version where you like confit duck, you cook the duck, it renders the fat, and that fat cap across the top hermetically seals what's underneath so that bacteria can't penetrate the dish. And of course, you can cook duck confit and set it out on your counter, and it can sit there for a couple of days, and nothing's gonna. In fact, it tastes better every day you let it sort of work. But yeah, so fat is a naturally antibacterial environment, and so you can render it, and then we store it in buckets. And then when it's time to make a recipe, I use 3 fats predominantly in our creams. So lard, leaf lard, which we can unpack a little bit if you'd like, and then tallow. And so tallow comes predominantly from cows, and then lard and leaf lard come from pigs. And so I use those 3 fats. We have a sort of a proprietary blend depending on our products that we utilize.
Like, so like one be like firmer or.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Do you make like a lip balm with one, and then like
we're working on a lip balm. Yeah, we have a face food, which is sort of our neck up product. And what I tell people is it's in a nice little 1 ounce jar. I have one in my car. And so in terms of lips and just driving around, I just stick my finger in there and put a little on my lips, and it works great. Now, this is one of the preconditions to skincare. Like, they've told us that you need a specific product for a specific problem, AM cream, PM cream, X.
I'm not sure I ever bought that.
I don't buy it at all. But most consumers have bought that, right? So we have a face specific product. It's formulated differently than our body product. But I tell people all the time, I travel with our face food because it's a smaller container. And at home on my kitchen counter and bathroom counter, I have our skin food, just because it's a bigger jar.
How do you determine the mix? So is it based on for example, like part of someone buying something, right, is they don't want to feel like they go through it too fast as well, but it can't be so like rigid it doesn't loses its effect. So like, is that part of it, or like how do you determine the viscosity of it, or what the
Sure. Great question. So I mentioned, the sort of the watershed moment was 2019. And so we were hard and fast in this sort of hemp game. And so figured out the lard works in mysterious ways. This is really cool. Put it up on a shelf. I'm going to come back and play with that. Right. And so fast forward 2020, I don't remember. There was some really crazy stuff going on in 2020. So it was like all hands on deck, not to like die. And then, so 2021, I really started formulating and figuring out, okay, I know this stuff works, so let's make a product. And so it's probably a year and a half, 2 years of tinkering with formulas, the ratios of the fats, using essential oils. We put a little bit of honey in there, and so it was just trial and effort. I mentioned the farm and my monthly food drops to Atlanta, so I just ordered some jars, some little bitty sample jars, and I started making this stuff, and I'd bring it to people and hand it to them and get their feedback. Right. And so it was. In terms of how we got to our formulation now, I wanted to, because we don't use any water, we don't use any preservatives, and I wanted to, at room temperature, sort of be as creamy as something you might walk into CVS and purchase. And so that it did take some tinkering around. But at the end of the day, I wanted to put product performance and quality at the very, very top. If it's a little greasier than what you're used to, fine, but it works, right? If it doesn't smell like what was the brand?
Laneige.
Laneige.
There's berry, there's blueberry, there's all these other versions.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
there you go. So I'm not gonna smell like Laneige, or I'm not gonna be on the shelf at Sephora, right? But when you put this stuff on, it's gonna solve your problem, right? So that was sort of the apex.
So it's the stuff you favor is it could be potentially more like, hey, this is like put it on at night because it might be a little greasier, but it works because you wake up with. Do you have to balance between what it does to a pillow as well, or someone's shirt?
It's an application. So that's probably the biggest trainer that we have to tell people is, I tell them, put a little bit on your finger, rub it on your hands, and then put it on. When you've put our stuff on, you're going to feel like you've hardly put any on. It's just a microscopic layer. But yes, give it 10 minutes and your skin will eat it. So it's effectively gone at that point. We do encourage nightly use just because it's so different in terms of the experience. But while you sleep, I've never had an issue with my pillowcases or anything like that. And Lord, this stuff's been everywhere. I put it in my hair, all the places. But yeah, but ultimately, and again, I come back to this, and this is why I still am so passionate about this. Our stuff works, right? And so even if it feels a little greasy when you put it on, does it work? Yes. Okay. People by and large like results. They're willing to sort of come through the initial learning phase of, okay, I don't need to put as much of this on, or maybe I only need to put it on every other day. I mean, our biggest complaint, you touched on this earlier, like how long does this product take? Because most people are like, I don't want to use it too quickly. Our average subscription is like every 3 months. Now, if you live in an arid climate or you're a skincare like daily user, then it might last you 2 months, but a little it's actually on our jars. A little of this jar goes a long way. So be gentle.
Well, and I asked that too, because I mean, to kind of pivot to your business, right? We were talking before, we have 10-year-olds. My 10-year-old wants to, make her own skincare and this and that. And we mix coconut oil and we bought an aloe plant, and then I put it into like a blender mixer. And I'm like, well, I don't know what we do with it now. It's too liquidy. I'm like, so we're just making stuff up, and she sells it, but I'm like, we want to get away from the Vaseline petroleum base. And so could Farrow be a base that you mix in coconut oil or coconut, oils with, or like, is there stuff you don't mix with it because it doesn't work? So just from like a business standpoint of like, do you supply people like, hey, here's your stuff, your raw materials, you mix it however you want? Or how do you guys, you have your commercial side, but how does your business work for, just for more entrepreneurs who want to get into this business? I like them to learn from others.
Yeah, we were talking before we hit record about co-packers, and so we're still handcrafting all of our stuff. Our one product that we outsource to a co-packer is our Epidermis product, which comes in a tube. And so I don't outsource the manufacturing; I outsource the filling. And so I'll ship up.
So you send them the materials.
I send them a bulk buckets, 2 buckets. I go to Texas and they'll spin me out, 1,000 units of our Epidermis.
And they send that back to you then?
Correct. And then we're direct to consumer through our website only right now. And I have 0 plans to go on Amazon. Some may gawk at that, but every time I go on Amazon.
You could be in more of an Etsy shop. It's more like, handmade stuff.
That's true. Yeah.
Just charge a premium for a premium product and leave it there.
That's right. Or the TikTok shop that may go away in,
I wouldn't go TikTok right now.
No. I love the meme that was floating around when the TikTok ban was, it was like, comfortable with the TikTok ban, having never signed up for TikTok,
Yeah.
So,
actually, they banned our never been promoted account because they said we had content that was offensive. And I'm like, I cannot imagine what we possibly could have done that was offensive. They wouldn't let us advertise. So I was about to nuke our account anyway. And now I'm definitely going to nuke our account and just maybe rebuild it. I don't know. But yeah, long here and there. So can a business or an individual say, hey, I'd like to buy, a gallon of this stuff so I can mix it in with my stuff? Do you guys do the wholesale?
We're not there yet. We're not there yet. It's potentially what I did do is trademark Smart Lard. If you buy our product, you'll see it's made for Smart Lard. Not all lards are created equal, sort of back to how the pig is raised. And so if you want to use the Smart Lard mark, I'm out here sort of making lard awesome again. Then we can talk about it, and I can license.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So right now you're on the retail side selling it to people through, Correct. And you're doing word of mouth. You're doing podcasts. And what I'm getting at is you're starting small. You're starting with tangible ways based on what you can produce. Because if you start producing it, now you're into the skincare game of like, well, I'm going to lose quality. I'm going to lose, and that's the brand. And so how maybe from a businessman standpoint, right? Like, how are you going to bridge scale without losing the brand's quality proposition?
Great question. So I mentioned my day job, insurance. and early before we even launched the company. So actually, they're right here in Atlanta, Georgia Grinders. I should get Jamie. You would love Jamie, their founder, on your podcast. Best nut butter brand in the country. Okay. I do all of their insurance. And I was sitting at home one day, we were formulating this, and I thought, I roast, or I render, they roast. They grind, I mix, and then we're just sort of squeezing stuff into a jar. And so I before we even launched, I was hypothesizing and figuring out how scalable is this, And so I went and they were coming up for review anyway. So I called Jamie and I'm like, hey, I need to come spend 3 days on your manufacturing floor. So I put the hairnet on, all the things, and I went and made nut butter for 3 days. And so again, seeing their process, how is it similar to my process? How big is their team? How much throughput in a day or 2 days or 3 days? How many ounces of nut butter ended up in a jar? And so making all those comparisons, drawing some correlations between the way my business works and the way theirs works, and figured out very quickly that this is extremely scalable. As long as can get the ingredients.
As long as you got fat coming in.
That's right.
You're good.
That's right. And so, so far that hasn't been a challenge. I sort of joke with people. I long for the day when the raw ingredient acquisition from my side of the house becomes more difficult, because that just means pastured, high integrity, pork fat, beef fat are more demanded by consumers, because I do think at the end of the day, when it comes to cooking, I think they're healthier fats. And again, this sort of ties into that whole Maha thing that's going on right now, which I'm thrilled about. But yes, there's a balance with the co-packing side. Again, how do you want to launch? I mean, go to Etsy. There's a new tallow brand I feel like every month launching. You can make this stuff at home, for your daughter. Start small. That's what we did, and we're still doing. But at some point, you either outsource, and then I think I think you start in your kitchen, or you start. I rendered fat in my church's commercial kitchen for 2 years, right? So there's a lot of avenues by which you can sort of outsource the spacing of this, right? And so. You can start there. You build an audience. You build a following. Well, first and foremost, you make quality products. Do they work? Do you have high integrity? With your labeling and all that fun stuff. That's very important to us. But at some point, you'll sort of want to scale, and it's interesting. There's a company out of North Carolina. My executive coach introduced me, Murphy's Naturals. You've probably seen them in a bunch of stores, but it's bug repellency. Stuff, candles.
I've heard that brand for sure.
Yeah, Murphy's is awesome, and so I've had the opportunity to visit with Philip Freeman, is the founder, and he walked me through, because they've gotten big now, and he did exactly that. He started off in his garage, scaled to a co-packer, and now he's actually repatriated all of his co-packing, because he can control the quality and everything else, and his COGS came down when he brought it back in-house.
For those listening, cost of goods sold.
Oh, thank you. Yes, cost of goods sold. And so
I'm happy I knew that one.
and those, so those are all the decision points. As you grow.
There's this push, and you have this stuff. Is the business in retail, or is the business in I basically sell minimum 10,000 gallons of beautiful lard to you, company X, and to you, and so is your whole game? Let's build the amazing base ingredients, because I have the contracts with these guys in Tennessee or Georgia, and they make this many pigs for me every year, and I own that supply line. I feel like that's the better business, because then you're just you're focusing on just high quality, and what they do downstream from it is one thing.
Yeah, I really love the consumer interaction.
You're addicted to the Riz.
I love it. And again, this is something that Philip's done at Murphy's. I use him as sort of a goal-based template, is let's build the retail side so that then we can justify in-housing the manufacturing side. And then that gives us the capacity, because once you're manufacturing, it's like you want that machinery running.
Yeah,
you want
it
24/7,
no downtime.
So now we can open that door to your daughter or somebody else that wants to sort of take their niche and spin it the way they want to. And then we have the capacity to, on a B2B business, wholesale business, be there.
Well, that's in game. You do have to buy to demand, and you have to have the brand to say, hey, this stuff's really good. It's high level. It's great product. So somebody comes to you and says, oh, well, we use, Farrow Skincare or Farrow Life, products, a supply. So our products are better, and we make natural. Maybe they do it differently, natural smells, whatever. Who knows what their angle is on it? But you can't do that until you own the manufacturing path. And you can't get to the manufacturing path until you have demand to make the capital investment to go do it.
That's right. That's right. So it's it's stages, and there's break points. I mean, we had our best December ever, which was great because we got to sort of pressure test our current fulfillment model and all that fun stuff, and everything survived. And so it's like, okay, so we can take another step. And so, this is going to be our first year of doing what I'm going to call paid ads. We're not doing like meta ads. We're going directly to some sort of curated consumer bases and doing paid ads sort of through their, to their audience. And so this will be the first year that we're sort of doing something outside of organic conversations. You got to unpack pig fat because everybody doesn't know what it is anymore. And there's all this negative connotation around lard and this, that, and the other.
I don't see like it. I think Taro kind of ripped the way forward on that one.
Well, fair.
You're on the tails of the cow.
There you go.
Maybe shift gears for me. Talk about you said you're divorced, you have kids. How has it been building a business as you've done this? I mean, because I think there's a lot of guys that I know that listen to this, and there's a lot of people I've met that are, and women too, that are they're going through it. They're about to, they're on the other side of it. Yet you're succeeding. So if you don't mind, like talk about kind of the humanized side of building a business, because what you're building is beautiful. You got a plan, no doubt about it. People need to go to the Farrow.life to go check it out. But give some advice on the other side, for those who are kind of where you are or where you've been.
Yeah, well, I mean, divorce is hard, and starting a business is hard. I launched
do them together at the same time. It's great.
Yeah, why not stack it up? I started the farm. One of the big tenets behind or motivations behind starting the farm was I had these young kids. Of course, at the time they were 4 and 2. And really wanted to expose them to sort of that daily grind, outdoors, animals, all that fun stuff. And at some point, we launched Farrow in 2022, and in 2023, so I was day job farming and Farrow, and it was like, and the kids were getting older. They post divorce, they moved back to Atlanta. Their mother lives here, and I'm 2.5 hours away, and so had to sort of put the farming hat up. And that's when both kids have business cards. I've kept them integrated in the business in some capacity. And so, one advice I would give anybody that's sort of going through that is, find creative ways to incorporate your children into the journey, right? Because it just ties them a little bit closer to you, and it's sort of a shared experience. But man, I would say be patient and, find God. I was baptized last year, probably long overdue. Thank you. But
so is it a newer faith journey?
I would call it a newer, I've sort of, my prayer group leader would be laughing if he ever hears this, but yeah, I had to let go. And I think during divorce, especially, any challenging moment, but you want to sort of try to take control, and you've got to let go. And so that for me, and again, I've been divorced now 4.5 years, finally reaching a point where I have to turn this over to my higher power. Like, I can't control this. I got to work. I got to control what I can, and all of these things that I'm worried about, and all of these, what people think of me, or what my ex thinks of me, or, I'm out here doing all I can. And as long as I'm doing it for him, for my higher power, then everything's okay. And I'm going to do my best, and to be able to give someone grace and understanding. And so that's what it's meant to me, is just be able to.
That's a beautiful thing. I asked because of I'm on a smaller journey or faith journey not too many years ago, and I'm not going to be selling Bibles at the door anytime soon. So don't I'm going to read into that. But without it, I don't think I start this podcast. Without it, I don't think I've launched this community or written the book that's coming out this year. I think I'm a worse person if we hadn't decided as a family because we saw this direction of the kids. They needed some community. We had no community. We've been living here in Atlanta for a few years. Like, just don't, not that you get a ton of it from where we go at North Point because it's big. You have to get to the small groups to do it. But just the nature of looking at a book and in the faith in business, in the faith in the world and your family, how it all kind of ties together. So some of the principles of it. I think it's a beautiful thing, Ron. I didn't mean to derail the conversation too much because I think it's core. I'm just picking up with this. It doesn't happen for you without it.
I agree. And like I said, I mean, all of these things, they're air quotes hard. And we want, that ego steps in. We want to control this. We have these expectations of others, and you really need to be able to let that go and just focus on becoming the best version of you that I do feel like I have been called to this business and to what we're doing at Farrow. And so it was remarkable how sort of all that came together, and it was,
It's interesting. You look at it and you're like, man, if I had done this maybe 10 years ago, what would my life be like? Right.
Yeah. Well, those are the questions that absolutely sink your boat.
You struggle with.
I mean,
you're like the idea it meets you where you are when you need
that's
it.
Right.
And you don't know what's in life. And I applaud you for doing it, be able to talk about it because, your call to nature is tied to that. This like, there's something missing in my life. There's something bigger and it finds you through the things you find. I don't know. It's, you're so early on the journey, right? You're like, you have a full daytime job. You're, still a full-time dad, and you're like, you may not, maybe you have interactions that are every other week or whatever, but it's in your mind, you're still a full-time dad. It's like,
oh yeah.
And now you have this full-time business that's taking off. The question I have for you next is, what's the scenario when you cross over and you're like, insurance it's what I've done, but it's no longer what I am?
Man, I get that question a lot.
Or do you need to? I mean,
so I was at this conference back in 2011. There's a guy named Dallas Hartwig. He's the co-founder of the Whole30. Okay. And if you don't know, so you got Dallas and Melissa, they founded Co30. And Dallas is a former semi-professional volleyball player, handsome devil, 6'3", chiseled, good-looking guy. And I'm standing at that conference.
I hate him, every bit of him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm standing there, and a mutual friend of Dallas and I's walks up, and she goes, "Oh my God, Dallas," and she's just sort of joking around. She's like, "You are so hot, blah, 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 blah." And she looks at me and she goes, "Oh, Charles, you're hot too. You're like truck stop hot." Okay. Which I consider a compliment.
I mean, if it's Buc-ee's, that's really,
that's right.
Super
and so when it comes to sort of this, like, where do you let that go? If Elon Musk, who's obviously a very special part, he's running like 8 companies, right? And
that was my thing. I don't think you have to, but the nature of some businesses, you're in it.
Sure. Well, I have a great team behind me in the insurance game, right? I've got customer service reps in the office. I can get out and beat the streets. My passion on insurance, that's sort of the field of expertise that I like, is manufacturing and food production, food service. So restaurants, food manufacturers, George Grinders, great example. I love those brands. one of my favorite things growing up was going to do the manufacturing company tour, right? And you get to see how
it works, right?
Widgets are made. I love all that stuff. And candidly, there's a piece of the commercial insurance side that's also benefits. And I've got this health and wellness background. And so getting in and doing the employee benefits and sort of structuring incentive programs that I know work. I'm running a carnivore challenge for our office right now in the office, right? And so little things like that. And so is there a point where I put one back on the shelf? I can't answer that definitively, but I've got a really good team built around me on the insurance side of the house. We're so young on the skincare. Part of my job and challenge as a leader is to build the team, and we're working on that. The team to take that company and be able to grow it so that, my exclusive role in that business at some point is having conversations like this, sort of, managing from the top That's right. That's right.
Are
And
you
so,
are you looking at like entrepreneurial operating systems and things like that for the implementations, some EOS stuff? We should look into this.
yeah,
Yeah, well, you're
maybe.
big enough. So how you're describing it, there's a thing called EOS. It's worth reading the book. The book somewhat is promotional marketing for the guy to come do it, but it's called EOS. It's excellent when you're not a solopreneur. So that book would be a good one for you to read right now for sure.
Yeah.
My company, my teams are on Philippines. It's not going to really apply anytime soon.
Yeah.
So and
I'll say to entrepreneurs that are listening, so it's not just me. Like I have a sort of a COO, right. I have a fractional CFO. So our books are tight, all that fun stuff. Everyone's virtual. And so one of the nice things about a young up and coming company, as we are, getting the books right was an expense I really wasn't comfortable spending early, but I knew I had to. But as we've sort of crested above profitability, you're looking around. And so I have a virtual assistant now, albeit, 10 hours a week, and she's in the Philippines. Right. And so we're adding pieces now. The day-to-day, I've got one gal locally. So I'm talking to you. I'm in Atlanta for 3 days. She's going to go by, make sure the orders are packed up, ship those out. So I'm bringing somebody on there. Right. And so that's sort of right where we are. But the point is and both businesses sort of feed each other. Again, I go to these conferences, I'm seeing other brands in the space. Insurance is a complicated industry. And so if I can assist other brands as sort of they go from little to big and all the various decision points around, general liability insurance, product liability insurance, all of that stuff. If I can be a resource, I'm happy to do that. And so there's a lot of correlation between day and night, but I don't know, man.
So as you do it, like, right, the way to, not a lot of people are in the spot to do entrepreneur at EOS, but look at EOS as a book and look at it, and they have implementers that can help you put it in. You're on that path for sure, and it might be something you're already doing. You're like, oh, that's perfect. Like, it's like reassuring yourself with it. I don't think you actually need to do. I just always ask the question: would you leave what you're doing? Which tells you still like what you're doing on the insurance side. In what happens with a lot of entrepreneurs, as you probably have known, is they're running away from something else they don't like to do to go do something else. And that sometimes they get a false positive on traction and they move too fast. And so
I have my note. I will take, and thank you for the.
Well, I mean, listen, that's one thing entrepreneurs are good at, are giving unsolicited advice. That's where so awesome. But you have to take that away. And I'm just conscious of time. I know you have kind of a hard stop here. There's so much more I'd ask you. Maybe we'll do a follow-up interview if you'd like. Farrow.life, you have a special cut the tie. You want to do a little plug for whoever you'd like to contact you?
For sure. Well, so Farrow.life, if you /cut the tie, it'll save you 15% on any of our products. And you're looking at the guy that answered emails. So if you got questions or comments or want to know more, we're in the middle. I will say this: we're in the middle of a migration to Shopify. Don't worry, that won't affect you. Everything will point toward at the end. But if you or anyone you know has a skin problem of any sort, I will tell you that our stuff, again, I started because it worked on sunburn, but I'm still here because it works on everything else. And Thomas, I just want to say it's been a real pleasure to chat with you today. I appreciate you reminding me. I got to go pick my son up from school.
Yeah, no, I've been listening to it.
Yeah, thank you for that. But you're in Atlanta and I'm down here a lot. Yeah, well, we've agreed to have coffee
as well if you'd like. I know you got to bail, so I'll find time with you. I'll shoot you an email here. I know you got to run off, but thank you so much for taking a few minutes with me today. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, talk soon. Thank you for anyone who's made it here. Check it out. Charles Mayfield is the founder of, like I said, once again, a Farrow. I keep saying Farrow. It's Farrow.life. And /cut the tie. You'll get a discount. So that's awesome. I'm going to use it. Listen, guys, get out there. Go unleash your entrepreneur. Just cut some ties to anything holding you back. Don't let anything stop you. Just get going. Thanks for listening.